Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Fastamai, good evening. Welcome to Update, your daily roundup of all things Isle of Man. We have lots to bring you before 5:30, so here is what's coming up. The Health Minister, Laurie Hooper, tells us he doesn't think a decision to cut elective surgery procedures for up to 6 months would have been taken by Manx Care if it had been given any other options. Also today, following a call to Manx Radio's Mannin Line, raising concerns about conditions for crew at Douglas RNLI, we'll bring you the response we've had to that, and we'll also find out about Hospice Care Week. Plus, as ever, we'll keep you posted about any traffic or travel issues. And if you have thoughts to share, we'd love to hear from you. You can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. First, let's join Siobhan for a roundup of today's main news headlines.
The Health Minister says he doesn't think a decision to cut elective surgery procedures for up to 6 months would have been taken by Manx Care if it had been given any other options. Laurie Hooper told Manx Radio whilst the move is technically a decision made by the health body, it's come at the behest of those on high. An Oncon MHK has criticised the Department for Enterprise's decision not to add politicians to the list of prescribed persons in whistleblowing cases over concerns of confidentiality and a lack of authority. The majority of respondents to a public consultation supported the idea of Tynwald members being recognised as someone to whom a disclosure can be made. Julie Edge will bring forward proposals to reverse the decision later this month. 6 clinicians have been hired to help tackle the wait list for child mental health services on the Isle of Man. Currently, around 800 children and young people are waiting for an assessment. It's the last day to have your say on the major themes that will form the basis of a new health and care services bill. A consultation on the 4 key policy principles, that's service planning, record sharing, service improvement and empowering patients, closes at midnight tonight. And the BBC's Clive Myrie's been forced to apologise after not declaring his earnings from an event he hosted on the Isle of Man. The Times newspaper reports it's one of 11 jobs the presenter failed to inform his employer about. Further afield, a retired GP has been jailed for 22 years after assaulting 7 women during routine examinations. 65-year-old Stephen Cox targeted the patients at a surgery during the 1980s and 90s. An investigation's underway after a couple believed to be in their 70s were found dead at a house in Cardiff. A rifle was discovered and a dog discovered lifeless at the property on Saturday. And Manchester City have won a legal challenge against some of the Premier League's sponsorship rules. They're your headlines. I'll be back with your news at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Siobhan. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. It's going to be mostly dry this evening and at first tonight, just a small chance of a shower. But later in the night, there will be a band of heavy rain spreading in from the south. The southeast winds will turn to the east overnight and they will freshen a little bit, so overnight temperatures around 11. Any rain at first tomorrow will soon clear, but further occasional showers are likely for the rest of the day, possibly a few sunny intervals as well, and there'll be moderate or fresh easterly winds. Maximum temperatures tomorrow around 15. Sunset this evening will be at 6:39. Sunrise tomorrow morning 7:34.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
TE Carbon provide new memorial stones, grave renovations, new inscriptions and fire hearths. Visit us at Hope Street, Castletown or at Broadway, Douglas, or call 844 440. TE Carbon, here when you need us.
Most builders start with a hammer and saw. Manx Construction start with ideas and imagination. For new build, extension or home office, Manx Construction offer full service from planning to completion. Call Tony on 452 688.
We all need peace of mind. That's where Peace of Mind Manx Will Writing Services can help you. From just £149 plus VAT. Call 671 001 or go to peaceofmind.co.im.
At Bond Fabrics, we're not just a fabric shop. As well as curtains and upholstery and dress and costume fabrics, we've knitting and crocheting wools, made-to-measure curtain and blind service, plus poles and tracks. Visit Strand Street, Douglas, call 611856 or see bondfabrics.im.
You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. It's just gone 4.5 minutes past 5. The Health and Social Care Minister has criticised an MHK who wants more political oversight of Manx Care, saying his efforts are misguided. Now, you might remember that we've talked about this before. Douglas Central's Chris Thomas wants a political member to be placed on the Manx Care board who would then field questions and queries from Tynwald. Well, Laurie Hooper says he doesn't understand what that would achieve, and we'll hear more about that specifically in a moment. But first, Simon Richardson also asked Mr Hooper for his views on Manx Care's decision to reduce the number of operations it carries out every week in a bid to save money.
I think, as I've explained already, whilst this is technically an operational decision made by Manx Care, it has come at the behest of those on high. So we've, as you've seen publicly reported, the Chief Minister has been quite clear that Manx Care has to come in on budget. I think his words were irrespective of demand. That's how it was reported. The Treasury Minister has also made his position very clear that we are required to enact what he calls our contingency plans. And ultimately, so like I say, whilst, yes, Manx Care's decision was made by them, it was made in that context of very clear messaging, very clear communications from those at the top of the tree. I don't think this is a decision that would have been made by Manx Care if they'd have been given any options around it, I think.
So what is your view?
I think my view is the same as Manx Care's. We've been told to do it, so it's being done. Like I said, it's not something that I think anyone would choose to do. In a perfect world, I think Manx Care would have made very different decisions, but in the context that we have been placed in, with the very clear instructions and messaging that's coming out from the top, it's not like we have a lot of room left to manoeuvre.
Let's take it a step further. Say Mr Thomas's motion is successful. Would that force you to consider your position as Minister?
No, if Mr Thomas's motion is successful, I will be nominating him to be the shadow member of Manx Care's board. If he believes that it should be the responsibility of a member of Tynwald with no actual responsibility or power to answer those questions, I am more than happy for Mr Thomas to take that role on. The reality, though, about the motion is it is quite misguided, because a lot of the things it's asking for we're already doing.
That said, though, if the motion is successful, you would be in a very uncomfortable position.
I think it's fair to say I'm in a very uncomfortable position right now. I don't think the motion changes any of that. My position on health service funding is quite clear. Liberal Mannin are absolutely robust on the fact that we have a national health service on the Isle of Man that is free at the point of use, and that is not something we are going to compromise on. It's not something I'm going to compromise on. That is very clear, which should be funded through a progressive system of taxation. If you want to reform things, that's where we need to start. That has been my position since day one. That is the Liberal Mannin Party position. That is not where we are. That's not where the government is. That is not the direction of travel that has been communicated, as you've seen from other ministers. I accept that. I accept that I have a very different perspective than my colleagues, and that is the nature, I think, of collective government on the Isle of Man. So if the motion is successful, saying, yes, we should do another top-down sets of reforms, crack on Tynwald. Ultimately, I'm a servant of Tynwald in my ministerial capacity. If that's what Tynwald really wants us to do, is to spend time and energy and resources reshuffling the deck chairs, that we can do that. I don't think it's a sensible use of resources. I would much rather be spending our time helping Manx Care actually deliver services for patients, actually improve things.
That's the Health Minister Laurie Hooper talking to Simon there. You can hear that interview in full as the latest edition of Newscast on manxradio.com. And this Thursday at 5:30 there'll be a special Island Live programme looking at all sides of this Manx Care decision. That's with Siobhan, as I say, this Thursday from 5:30. Well, reaction to Manx Care's forecast overspend continues, this time from a veteran in the world of politics. Alistair Ramsey, who's held roles in the media and worked at the heart of government, sitting in the Council of Ministers briefings and advising senior political figures, has shared his thoughts today. Chief Minister Alfred Cannon, as we've heard, has described the Health Service's £16.8 million overspend as completely unsustainable, and frontline services are now being cut to save money. Mr Ramsey told political correspondent Phil Gaughan he believes funding the health body was not given enough priority.
You have to get people to pay more, or you try and cut the thing or privatise it, and that's not acceptable either.
And of course, ultimately, that's what's been Manx Care's response is, well, OK, we'll have to reduce the amount of operations that we're doing.
And then the politicians go mad because that's not palatable.
So then in terms of ministers, is it probably more the case that the Chief Minister was rather too eager to let some of his ministers go in the early part of his administration?
I think having a high turnover of ministers is not an ideal situation, because nobody has a chance to get a handle on the job, and that big churn in the early years was very unusual for Manx politics. And the problem, if you keep doing that, you run out of friends, and all the people you've sacked will then sack you. I do sense that there are tensions, fairly fundamental tension within Council of Ministers. I suspect that the Treasury Minister would like to be a lot more radical in terms of taxing and spending than perhaps his colleagues are comfortable with. So he's been kind of inhibited. And I think the problem they've got is that they're not doing one thing or the other. They're not kind of running a tight ship, or they haven't been running a tight ship and cutting back, but nor have they gone for that, the proper higher taxation approach.
That is Alistair Ramsey, who is talking to Phil Gaughan there. You can hear their full discussion during Agenda from 5:30 this evening. 5:10 now. The Royal National Lifeboat Institution says it's committed to finding a long-term solution to ensure the sustainability of Douglas RNLI. Now, this follows concerns about the conditions that volunteer crew there are currently working under. News editor Tessa Hawley is with me now in the studio. And Tessa, this update was sparked by a Manx Radio listener.
It has been. So before we go into what the RNLI has said in response, I thought it might be useful for you to play some of the call from the Mannin Line caller, Julie. Now, she wanted to highlight what she felt were the problems facing Douglas RNLI at the moment.
Douglas, at the moment, they have had their building condemned, so they can't use it. Their lifeboat is a third-hand lifeboat that used to belong to Ramsey and previously belonged to Peel, that is moored on the outside of the wall. So if there is a call for the Douglas lifeboat to go out, they have to go to a shipping container where all of their gear is contained, get changed there, and then get a minibus around to the sea terminal so that they can then climb down onto their boat, and nobody is doing anything to support them. Now, on top of that, they have been left in a fund, £5.5 million to either rebuild or get a new boat, or to get them all equipped. But the ties that was put on it was that it is for Douglas Lifeboat. So if they send it anywhere else, it's going to disappear. It's going to be taken off them. Yeah. But there is no support for anybody to do anything to get Douglas Lifeboat working as it should do. I do believe, that messages have been sent to various people involved with harbours, and it's just been ignored, because this has not happened yesterday. This has been going on for, the whole last year, and possibly even longer.
So that was Julie who called in to the Mannin Line. And Tessa, following that call, you went to the RNLI's Central Press Office. You asked it to respond to those concerns. What did they come back and say?
So the RNLI's Regional Communications Manager for Wales, North West and the Isle of Man told us that finding a long-term solution to ensure the sustainability of Douglas RNLI into the future has presented them with some challenges. She says it's imperative that the best possible location is found, and says since 2013 an extensive assessment of available site options has been undertaken. Now, in 2016, it was hoped that the existing boathouse could be converted into a 2-storey crew and lifeboat house. This work would have included the construction of a pontoon berth for the lifeboat. However, there were concerns raised at that stage with the proposal, and it was not pursued further.
So we heard Julie mention government there. Has government responded to her concerns?
Well, obviously, we went straight to the Department of Infrastructure, and as yet, we've had no response. But the RNLI says it has been working closely with government to look at alternative solutions for the future. As a charity, it says it has to spend its donors' money wisely, and says it realises this has been a difficult time for all involved, and has thanked Douglas RNLI for its patience. It also adds that Douglas RNLI crew are continuing to operate effectively with the Mersey-class lifeboat from the current site.
Tessa Hawley, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Update on Manx Radio, 14 minutes past 5. Let's turn our attention to business with Ramsey Crookall. And the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, Jane Paul Wilson, will open the Cyber Isle 2024 conference at the Comus Hotel on Thursday. This year's event takes place against a backdrop of increased global conflicts and tension and the ever-present threat of cyber attacks on businesses and individuals. So the agenda is going to cover a broad range of topics, and presentations will come from high-profile expert speakers. Mike Haywood is director of the Cyber Security Centre Isle of Man, and Simon put it to him that cybersecurity is an increasingly high-profile topic.
Yes, that's right, Simon. It does continue to hit the headlines. As you say, recent examples of disruptions to railway networks in the UK, London hospitals having their patients' attendance sort of disrupted. Risk is growing and evolving, and it affects individuals, businesses, and the critical national infrastructure.
Now, this year's conference taking place at Comis, is there a specific theme?
There are a number of sort of themes, really. During the course of the day, we're going to cover items like employee education, what's referred to as the human firewall, an update on what the state of ransomware is in terms of the developments and how that is evolving and what to be aware of. Sort of coverage of incident response and sort of preparations that businesses might take in the event of them being subject to an attack, how things with AI are changing the dynamics, and also third-party supplier risk. So something hopefully for everybody during the course of the day.
And who's likely to attend an event like this?
Yeah, well, it's a free-to-attend event, and it's still possible to register if you visit our website, csc.gov.im, and look at Cyber Isle. You can still register for a ticket. But it's open to individuals, as I said, so ordinary members of the public come along and see what's going on and educate themselves, but also for the business community, particularly those who have responsibility for sort of managing risk within organizations. They may want to understand how they can manage this risk and what other sort of strategies and mitigations that they can put in place.
That's Director of the Cybersecurity Centre on the island, Mike Haywood, there talking about the Cyber Isle conference, which gets underway this Thursday at the Comis Hotel. Well, let's turn our attention to the stock market report brought to us by Ramsey Crookall, and UK and European stocks started the new trading week on a positive note, buoyed by gains in Asia overnight and last Friday's rally on Wall Street as investors await fresh data sets. Now, the US dollar was just off its highest level in 7 weeks after a rally sparked by Friday's strong US jobs data and an escalation in the Middle East conflict. US crude oil rose as the market waited for further developments between Israel and Iran. Oil prices spiked last week on fears that Israel could hit Iran's oil industry in retaliation for Tehran's ballistic missile attack. And BP has abandoned a target to cut oil and gas output by 2030 as a chief executive scales back the firm's energy transition strategy to regain investor confidence, and that's according to 3 sources cited by Reuters. Looking at the commodities then, Brent stands up 3.17% at $80.42, gold off 0.19% at $2,646, and at the close the FTSE 100 was up 0.28% at 8,303, and a short time ago the Dow Jones was trading off 0.39% at 42,189, and the Nasdaq was off 0.3% at 18,082.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, the good news is police are not reporting anything on the roads this evening, and all is good down at the airport and the steam packet as well. If you want the full list of all the roadworks happening around the island, just go to the Traffic and Travel Hub at manxradio.com.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at
Quayside.
It's coming up to 90 minutes past 5. Now, some of you may have heard the news yesterday about the Port Erin branch of the Royal British Legion needing help to keep the charity open. Well, the organisation's been in operation in the south for close to a century, supporting veterans in the area, running the Poppy Appeal and the annual parade on Remembrance Day. Charity President June Watterson has been telling Chanel that they need to recruit a full committee or it'll be forced to close.
It was founded not long after the end of the First World War. So it has a long, proud tradition. It's very near to my heart. My grandfather was a former chairman of the branch. We also have the hall in Port Erin as well, where which we used to raise money for the branch and for our activities. So it's an interesting place to be. It's not a particularly onerous job. We sort of meet 4-6 times a year, and we're really looking forward to encourage those volunteers to come and do their bit for those who have already offered themselves up for king and country.
How important is it, to be involved in things like this and to keep organisations like this going?
The fact that we have branches in Port St Mary and Colby and Port Erin, I think is testament to the strength of feeling that's been over the years in support of the Royal British Legion. It's just at this particular point, Port Erin just needs that little boost and a few extra people to help it continue.
I'm just looking at your email now. It says we need some volunteers to step up or the branch may have to close. Do we have like a timeline by when you need volunteers by? Or
well, ideally we'll be setting an AGM date in November, so that would be the sort of time frame that we're looking for people to come forward. The good thing about the British Legion is there's training that's provided. There's a handy manual as to how to be a committee member. Actually, with the Legion, there's a lot of help and there's a lot of support, and there's other branches as well who do rally around each other to make sure that each branch is successful. So there is a great support network there in the Legion, but that's what you'd expect from the Royal British Legion, isn't it? What I would like is sort of active people. I think that's the important thing. You don't have to be young. It would be great if you've got the time and energy to give, as I say, it's about 6 meetings a year to support the future of the branch.
That is President of the charity, Ewan Watterson, talking to Chanel. You can find out more about that at manxradio.com. 21 minutes past 5. This week is Hospice Care Week, and this year's theme, it's focusing on hospice retail and the role it plays in funding the charity's services. Now, here at home, Hospice Isle of Man receives £1.7 million from Manx Care towards its £6.8 million budget. That leaves the charity to find the remaining £5 million through voluntary income. Chief Executive John Knight and volunteer Viv Cornelius have been talking to Christy DeHaven.
Proportionately, and knowing hospices in the UK, shop for shop, we are very good at retail on the Isle of Man, and the generosity again of the Manx public. They would generate close to £500,000 a year of profit for the hospice, which clearly towards the £5 million target is a huge contribution.
And it's actually a very simple way, isn't it, for the general public to support you by just giving you items that can then be resold in the shops. That's a really easy way for us to help you. For sure, and environmentally a very good thing as well, that they're not going to the municipal dump and they're being reused again. And it's lovely actually going to events when people come up and say, I'm fully dressed in hospice shop attire. It's nice. And it's certainly become more popular, hasn't it? That sort of idea of, like you said, recyclable sustainability, reusing. But coming back to you, Viv, again, just listening to John there talking about the volunteers and everything you do for the organisation, it sounds very much like you are part of hospice as a unit. So you would then, I'm guessing, want to encourage other people to maybe think about volunteering?
Absolutely. People have got a misconception of what hospice is all about and what it's like. And I just wish some of them could actually come up to hospice, have a walk round, come into our cafe, have a meal in there, look at our gardens, and it's a happy place. OK, it's got its sad side, obviously, but in the main, everybody's got a smile on their face. It's lovely and bright, it's airy, you can go in the gardens, you can eat, you can just come up and have a chat. It's a brilliant place.
That is Viv Cornelius, who is one of the volunteers at Hospice. And you also heard from the Chief Executive, John Knight, both talking to Christy about Hospice Care Week, which is this week, focusing on hospice retail. And as we heard just there, just what a fantastic role that plays in supporting hospice with the funds. You're listening to Update on Manx Radio, 23 and a half minutes past 5. Sport time now. Good evening, Darren Timpson.
Good evening, Beth. Starting with FC Isle of Man, manager Paul Jones has said his side know where they can improve as his side prepares to get back to winning ways away to Cheadle tomorrow. The Ravens lost 1-0 to Ramsbottom at the weekend, and Jones thinks the way teams are turning up to the ball is a testament to his side's capabilities.
I think they've come in to make it difficult for us because, that's the level of respect they have. They've not come thinking it's going to be a game they're going to go and smash us. They've sat in and been really kind of reserved in terms of how they've tried to attack and play. And second half especially, they just sat in as a block and made it difficult. And I thought we played through that. that, at times really well once we kind of got in good areas and had some runners, and I thought, we were excellent. So clearly teams fear us now, which is great. There's a lot of lads in there that aren't happy because we didn't get some points from the performance, but, and they're eager to get back on the pitch again and go. So, Wednesday gives us a chance to do that. It's potentially our last kind of midweek fixture now for the rest of the season, unless we have some Saturday postponements. So, we have a bit of time after Wednesday, hopefully, to really work with the team and improve in the areas that we think we can improve in.
Ravens manager Paul Jones. Moving on, the Manx powerlifting team has taken 4 gold medals so far at the Commonwealth Powerlifting Championships in Sun City, South Africa. Ireland competitors Tegan Lindsay, Freya Weldon, Sam Harris and Kale De La Reyes all took first place on Friday, 4th of October. However, the medals did not stop there for the team, as they also picked up 3 silvers from Harry Morgan, Lisa Grant and Kerry Lindsay, as well as a bronze medal for Lewis Runge. The team has been in action today and will be back again tomorrow. In football, Foxhill failed to take their chance to go top of the Canada Life Men's Premier League after they lost 4-1 to Onken on Saturday. Ayr, meanwhile, moved level on points with league leaders Peel after a 3-2 win over Union Mills, and they are now level on games played so far this season. In hockey, the semi-finals have been drawn for the Cup, Plate and Ball. In the Cup, Vikings A will play Vikings B and Harlequins A will play on Backers A. In the Plate, Valkyrs C will play Ramsey A and Castletown Southerners will take on Backers C. And in the Ball, Castletown Comags will play Harlequins B and Backers Colts will play Valkyrs D. And last but not least, the Isle of Man Special Olympics team took part in the Special Champions League over the weekend. The side took on the likes of Juventus and Arsenal and beat the North London club 7-2 in their final group game of the tournament. Coach Pete Corkle says it's an honour to train the team.
Thank you very much indeed, Darren, and we'll hear more about that on breakfast tomorrow morning. Just seeing that the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service has declared a major incident following a school bus crash in County Down. According to the BBC, police and emergency services are currently at the scene in Newton Ards. The double-decker bus was apparently carrying more than 60 passengers. 50 have minor injuries and 8 are being treated for more significant injuries at the scene. We'll have more details on that in the 6 o'clock news. But that just about wraps up Update for this evening. Thank you so much as ever for your company. This programme will shortly be available as a podcast to download at manxradio.com. Next up tonight, as we've been hearing, Agenda returns, and this evening's programme is Phil Gaughan talking to political commentator Alistair Ramsey. They're going to be discussing some of the current issues and lots of interesting thoughts from Alistair Ramsey in that programme. Then it's Greatest Hits Live with Chris Kinney from 6. Time for Brass is on at 9 with Ian Cottier, and then Dave Moore will be here from 10 p.m. with After Hours. So whatever you're doing, enjoy your evening, and we'll be back with Update at 5 tomorrow.